but it's not going to be a quick fix at Manchester United. That's the reality of it. This plan or this project at Manchester United is going to take some years to get it right.
Well, here's a look at Sunday in the Premier League. Aston Villa, West Ham, that was 1-1. Brentford with a good 2-1 win against Crystal Palace. Tottenham, though, falling at home to Leicester City. How worrying is that for Ange Postecoglou's side? Leicester City, they're just 1 point off the relegation zone in 17th place. That 3 points was magic for them. Tottenham, they're now 15th place. They're only 8 points away from the relegation fray. But how about Manchester United? For a large portion of their game at Craven Cottage, it did not look good for the Red Devils, but they got the job done in the end. Lisandro Martinez was the difference that got them all 3 points, and it's 3 points that, Nigel, lifts them to 12th place in the Premier League, which seems mad to say, doesn't it, for Manchester United? But after their loss at home to Brighton, it felt like the result was the only thing that mattered today, and in some ways it was the biggest thing because the performance was nothing to write home about.
The performance wasn't great, and we say sometimes as football players about getting an ugly win. Well, today I'll describe it as a ugly win for Manchester United because it was that bad. When you look at it, positives to take from the game today, there aren't too many. Again, for me, Ahmad does score a goal that gets ruled off for offside, but Collier for me is another academy graduate player that came on today and looked like a shining beacon for Manchester United. Another positive step when you talk about the academy and maybe building for the future. Someone else has come and stepped up to the plate. You look at before, it was Garnacho. Marcus Rashford's situation right now is a bit of a mess. Ahmad has really stepped up, and now Collier's another one to follow Kobe Mainoo. But it wasn't a great performance. It was a very tough game. It wasn't a great advert for the Premier League. I'd have to say Fulham were very disappointing as well, them being the home side. And when you look at what Manchester United have been and the struggles that they've had, I probably say I expected a lot more from Fulham, who only really came alive after going a goal behind. But for Manchester United, they got the job done. They got a very ugly win today, and not a lot of positives to shout.
It feels like we've got quite a decent sample size now of Ruben Amorim. Obviously, they're in the Europa League as well, but it doesn't feel settled. Are you convinced in any way that they have got a plan, that they're heading in the right direction? Because, I mean, over the last couple of weeks with that big loss at home that we mentioned, then the reports were that he was pulling things off the wall in the changing room. He came out and said maybe this is the worst Manchester United team we've ever seen, which some fans actually agreed with. Does it give you any confidence that this is going to come together for Manchester United in the near future?
I don't have a tremendous amount of confidence that it will. I just think that, we can only take the messaging that's coming out from Manchester United and Ruben Amorim. And I look in reflection of what I see on the pitch. I don't see a tremendous amount of progression. I know how Ruben Amorim believes in his footballing philosophy, in the three at the back, the two midfielders and whatever formation you want to call it. But I don't see a great deal of progression. I question sometimes some of the changes, the tactical changes that he makes. And today he started off with Fernandes and Ungarte in the middle of the pitch, where I feel, for me, the best pairing still is Mainoo and Ungarte, and Fernandes should be higher up the pitch. But it leads you to ask more questions still. There's so much going around at Manchester United. We don't know about Garnacho's future. He really looks like he's half out the door and half in the door, which doesn't help his performance, and it showed today. There is a cry still for that striker, that number 9. There's so many more questions than answers when I look at this whole Manchester United situation.
But you could say that about the Erik ten Hag era. There's just more questions constantly. I mean, Rasmus Højlund, who you just mentioned, he only had one touch in Fulham's box all game long. Is it a player situation at the minute? And what is the priority for this winter window? Yes, they want to get, some players out of the club, off the payroll as well. But in terms of bringing in players, I mean, what is the priority for them right now?
I would say for Manchester United, survival is the priority. They've lost that fear factor, and I feel that today was a game where Fulham didn't take full advantage of that. Surviving in the Premier League is the realistic aim for Manchester United this year. Yes, they are in the Europa League still. That's a competition that you would say on paper they've got good enough players to go far in that. I don't believe that they're the best team to be able to win that competition, but it's not going to be a quick fix at Manchester United. That's the reality of it. This plan or this project at Manchester United is going to take some years to get it right.
You think that Ruben Amorim is the right man, though, to make this a long-term project with Manchester United? I
believe that's still TBD. I think that he's a good manager. He's got good ideas. I feel that what I see from him is I think he's starting to get a reality check of how big Manchester United is, how big a job it is. I'm very surprised that he's been given quite a lot of freedom to go there and keep talking about imposing his footballing philosophy, his style of play. From my days as a player, Manchester United was about winning. It's about winning and winning. It's that winning mentality, winning culture. All the managers, well, the greatest manager they've had probably is Sir Alex Ferguson. He built teams on just winning. He had the players, he worked with the players in the sense of it's all about winning. You're not going to get points for style of play. You're not going to get points for a footballing philosophy. At the end of the day, Manchester United wants to compete with the top clubs in world football, like Real Madrid, and those clubs are built on a culture of winning.
I mean, you just said that Manchester United, their goal this season is survival, which seems crazy to say, doesn't it? They're in the Europa League. Do you think in some ways that is a bit of a distraction for them? They played on Thursday. They've got another game on Thursday against FCSB, who maybe on paper you would look at that game and think, well, they definitely should win that game, but they're also in a position where they could go through in an automatic qualifying place. So there's a lot of incentive for them. Then Manchester United want to avoid having to play that two-legged knockout game after the league phase. So how do you see these next couple of games going? Because it's brutal, isn't it? It's a real brutal stretch for Manchester United over the next month. It
is very brutal. I think when you look at it, it's the reality of where Manchester United are right now. Ruben Amorim told no lies. It's going to be a roller coaster. We're going to hurt. It's going to be difficult. We've seen them put in some great performances. You talk about the performance at Anfield against Liverpool, which was superb. Performance against Arsenal. Then we see them put on performances the likes against Brighton. Losing games you'd expect them to win. And that's the thing with Manchester. We don't know what we're going to get. Is it this whole footballing philosophy? Is it the players? There's so much going on and so much distraction at the club that it's not great. But it's a reality of what they are. When we say Manchester United now, we talk about the history of the club more so than what Manchester United are currently as a football team.
One good thing, though, for Manchester United, you could say, is the young players that they've got. Obviously, Kobbie Mainoo came in today, started on the bench. If you were in Ruben Amorim's shoes, who would you be building this team around?
I think Ahmad is the one that he's shown that he can trust. He can put responsibility on who's actually delivered and stepped up for his young age. Mainoo, for me, yes, hasn't been performing to the level that we have seen before. So that's a bit of a worrying concern. And when you look at the fact of the team selections that he hasn't played as much as well, is he a player that could potentially be sold? We already hear about the transfer rumours of Garnacho. Marcus Rashford is still an outcast at Manchester United. So there's a lot going on. And also with England, people have to understand that this PSR now plays a big part. This financial situation where homegrown players and academy players are most likely the ones to be sold because it's 100% profit for the club, which they can use in regards to stay in line with the PSR rules. So I think if I was Kobbie Mainoo right now, I think that would be my biggest worry, because when I look at it on paper, Mainoo and Ngate are the best pairing for that deep role that Amorim likes to play. But when you're looking at dropping Bruno Fernandes now to play with Ngate in that role, I question that. I think Bruno Fernandes is at his best when he's in the final third of the pitch being creative for Manchester United.
On the attacking side of things, are you convinced that Rasmus Højlund and Joshua Zirkzee are the future of Manchester United in that number 9 role?
No. They're not the future of Manchester United. They've been given enough chance now to show us what they can do. Clearly, they need a goal scorer. They need that striker. The history of the club, you talk about great strikers. You're talking about Wayne Rooney. You're talking about Ruud van Nistelrooy. You're talking about Andy Cole, Dwight York, Ibrahimovic up to date, Van Persie. There's so many legendary strikers who have played at Manchester United that they need a statement striker. But can they get that statement striker? Will they ever get that statement striker? I don't see it. And I think, like I said, it's going to be a lot of windows till this Manchester United side starts to get on the right track.
Ruben Amorim, just reading some of the quotes that he said after the game. He said, "We didn't suffer too much today." Would you agree with that? Would you have felt like Manchester United fans did suffer watching that game?
I suffered watching that game. I know he didn't suffer, but I think football fans suffered because both sides was really poor. It was really poor, and it's probably 90 minutes of my life that I probably won't be able to get back. That's how much I suffered.
Anything positive to take from today other than the result?
They got the job done. That's the main thing. They got the job done. They won very, very ugly. 3 points. You have to move on from it now.
OK, on to the next, which is the Europa League for Manchester United. But today, they did get all 3 points from Craven Cottage, beating Fulham by a 1-0.